My former boss invited me to his retirement party to show off my replacement. I showed up as the new CEO. I got the invitation to Gerald's retirement party 3 weeks after he fired me. The email said he wanted all his former team members there to celebrate his 30 years at Horizon Technologies and meet the bright young talent replacing me. Gerald had been my boss for 6 years and spent most of that time taking credit for my work while calling me mediocre in performance reviews. When I pitched the cloud infrastructure redesign that saved the company $8 million annually, he presented it to the board as his idea and got a bonus. When I warned him about the security vulnerabilities that almost caused a data breach, he blamed me for not flagging them sooner, even though I'd sent him 5 emails he never read. He fired me 2 months ago, claiming I wasn't a culture fit, which was code for I asked too many questions about why his nephew got promoted over me despite having 0 qualifications. I didn't plan to go to his stupid party until I got the call from Horizon's board of directors. They'd been investigating Gerald for months after an anonymous tip revealed he'd been falsifying reports and stealing credit for his team's innovations. The board wanted to know if I'd be interested in interviewing for a senior leadership position once they dealt with Gerald's retirement. I flew out for 3 interviews over 2 weeks and apparently impressed them enough that they made an offer I couldn't refuse. The timing was perfect because they wanted me to start the week of Gerald's party. I accepted and asked them to keep it confidential until the official announcement. The board chair smiled and said they'd been hoping I'd ask that because Gerald had become a liability they wanted gone, and my arrival would send the right message about new leadership. The party was at this fancy hotel ballroom with 200 people from the company. I walked in wearing my best suit and immediately spotted Gerald holding court near the bar with his replacement, a kid named Troy who looked about 25 and kept laughing too loud at everything Gerald said. Gerald saw me and his face lit up with that fake warmth he used when he wanted something. There he is, my old team member. Come meet Troy, the future of this department. Troy shook my hand and Gerald launched into this speech about how Troy reminded him of himself at that age, hungry and innovative. I just smiled and said Troy had big shoes to fill. Gerald practically glowed. Well, someone had to step up after you left. No hard feelings though, right? Sometimes people just aren't meant for the corporate ladder. His whole circle of yes men laughed. I excused myself and walked around talking to old colleagues who seemed genuinely happy to see me. Multiple people pulled me aside to say Gerald was a nightmare after I left, and they were counting down the days until his retirement. One woman from accounting whispered that Gerald had been padding his expense reports for years, and she'd finally reported it to the board. The VP of operations told me Gerald had thrown me under the bus so many times that everyone knew I was the one actually doing the work. Around 8 p.m., the board chair took the microphone and announced it was time for speeches. Gerald walked up to the stage beaming and launched into a 20-minute speech about his legacy and dedication and how he'd built this department from nothing. He thanked Troy for being willing to carry the torch and made a joke about how not everyone was cut out for leadership, glancing at the section where I was standing. The board chair took the microphone back and thanked Gerald for his service. Then she said the company was entering a new era of transparency and accountability. She announced that Gerald's retirement was effective immediately and would not include the consulting contract he'd been promised because of inconsistencies found during a routine audit. Gerald's face went white. She continued by saying Horizon was committed to promoting from within and recognizing true talent, which is why they were thrilled to announce their new CEO would be someone who embodied the company's values. She said my name and asked me to come to the stage. The room went completely silent. I walked up and shook her hand while Gerald stood there frozen. She handed me the microphone and I thanked everyone for the warm welcome back. I looked directly at Gerald and said I was honored to lead a company that valued integrity and innovation, and my first priority would be ensuring credit went to the people actually doing the work. Gerald tried to leave the stage, but the board chair stopped him and asked him to stay for a moment. She announced that Troy would be reporting directly to me in his new role as junior analyst, not department head as Gerald had promised. Troy looked confused and Gerald looked like he might pass out. After my speech, Gerald cornered me near the exit and asked how I could do this to him after everything he'd taught me. I told him he'd taught me exactly what kind of leader I never wanted to be, and I thanked him for that lesson. He's currently suing the company for wrongful termination. I'm countersuing for 6 years of stolen intellectual property.